The early morning fog hung low over Fort Bragg, wrapping the vast military base in a cold, gray silence that never truly lasted long. Because here, silence never survived the army. A distant bugle call cut through the mist, followed instantly by shouting instructors, boots hitting pavement in synchronized rhythm, and the metallic clank of equipment being prepared for another brutal day of training. For most recruits, mornings here felt like survival itself began before breakfast. For Private Emma Carter, it was something else. Not survival, not fear, routine. She stood in formation with the rest of her unit, shoulders squared, uniform neatly pressed but slightly loose at the edges. Her posture was correct, but not rigid like the others. It carried something subtle, control without tension. Around her, the other recruits shifted uneasily, trying to match the intensity expected of them. But Emma didn't try. She simply was. And that was exactly why people noticed her. Whispers begin before the day even starts. It always started the same way. A glance, a whisper, a smirk. She's the new one, right? Yeah, Carter. Heard she barely passed physical entry tests. She looks like she belongs in logistics, not infantry. Emma heard every word. She always did. But she never turned her head. Never reacted. Because reacting meant acknowledgement. And acknowledgement gave them power. So she gave them nothing. Still, silence didn't stop judgment. If anything, it made it louder. Captain Lewis arrives. The formation suddenly stiffened. Even before he spoke, everyone knew when Captain Marcus Lewis entered the field. He was not just an instructor. He was a reputation. A man who had trained elite units, survived deployments most people never spoke about, and believed only in one rule. If you break, you don't belong. He walked slowly in front of the recruits, eyes scanning each face like he was measuring durability instead of identity. Then he stopped, right in front of Emma. The air tightened. You, he said. Emma didn't move. Yes, sir. Lewis studied her for a long moment. Too long. Then he glanced at his clipboard. Private Emma Carter. Yes, sir. A pause. Behind her, someone coughed nervously. Lewis continued, voice louder now so everyone could hear. No prior combat deployment. Yes, sir. Average strength metrics. Yes, sir. A faint smirk passed through the formation behind her. Lewis closed the file. And you still requested infantry evaluation track. Yes, sir. That made a few recruits chuckle quietly. Lewis stepped closer. Close enough that only she could hear him now. This isn't a place for ambition, he said. It's a place for survival, and survival doesn't care about motivation. Emma's gaze didn't shift. I understand, sir. He searched her eyes for hesitation, for doubt, for anything that looked like fear. But there was nothing. Only stillness. That unsettled him more than resistance would have. He stepped back. We'll see if you still understand after week 1. Then he turned away. And just like that, the day began. The first training, breaking the body. The whistle blew. Instantly, the formation broke into motion. A 5-mile run, weighted packs, uneven terrain, timed performance. It wasn't just running. It was punishment disguised as exercise. Recruits surged forward, pushing hard, trying to prove something early. Emma stayed in the middle. Not leading. Not falling behind. Just steady. The first mile was fine. The second started to burn. By the third, breathing turned heavy across the entire group. Someone dropped back. Then another. A shout came from the side. Pick it up, you're not tourists. Emma adjusted her breathing. Inhale, exhale, controlled rhythm. She wasn't trying to outrun anyone. She was managing output. That difference mattered more than people realized. Because at Fort Bragg, speed wasn't the goal. Endurance was. The obstacle course, first exposure. By mid-morning, they were thrown into the obstacle course. Walls, rope climbs, mud pits, steel beams over water trenches. The kind of course designed to expose weakness in real time. Sergeant Drake stood at the edge, arms crossed. Go! Chaos erupted. Recruits scrambled forward. Some climbed too fast and slipped. Some hesitated and got shouted at. Some froze entirely. Emma moved differently. Not fast. Not slow. Efficient. She approached the first wall. Calculated the grip points. Jumped. Pulled herself up in one motion. No wasted movement. Down the other side. Next obstacle. Rope climb. Her hands tightened. She didn't rush. She counted rhythm. Pull. Shift. Pull. Shift. No panic. No shaking. But others noticed. Especially the instructors. One of them frowned. She's packing herself too evenly, he muttered. Drake didn't respond. He was watching more closely now. Because packing like that meant discipline or experience. The first crack in the armor. By afternoon, fatigue hit everyone. That's when mistakes happened. That's when character showed. During hand-to-hand combat drills, recruits were paired off. Emma was assigned to a larger male recruit from another unit. He looked at her and immediately smirked. Try not to cry, he said. A few people laughed. Emma said nothing. The bell rang. He came in fast. Too confident. Too aggressive. A straight punch aimed at her face. Emma blocked. Second punch followed. She stepped back. Another strike. She absorbed it partially. Her arm stung. Then a kick. It connected with her side. A grunt escaped her breath. The recruit smiled. See, Izzy. He rushed again, trying to finish it. But something changed. Emma stopped retreating. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Not anger. Awareness. She waited. Studied his rhythm. His breathing pattern. His reliance on momentum. Then, she moved. One step inside his guard. A sharp strike to his wrist. His punch lost alignment. Second motion. Elbow to ribs. The recruit stumbled. Surprise flashed across his face. But before he could recover, Emma rotated, used his imbalance, and swept him down. He hit the ground hard. Silence. A few recruits stared. Lucky, someone whispered. Emma stepped back. No celebration. No reaction. But something inside her had shifted. Not confidence. Recognition. She had seen something. And now, she understood the system better. Captain Lewis notices the chain. From the observation deck, Lewis watched quietly. Drake joined him. She's adapting, Drake said. Lewis didn't respond immediately. Then, that's what concerns me. Drake glanced at him. Why? Lewis folded his arms. Because recruits don't adapt this fast. A pause. Then he added. Soldiers do. Night falls and so does confidence. That night the barracks were loud. Recruits talking. Laughing. Bragging. but Emma sat quietly on her bunk, cleaning her gear. Repetition, careful hands, focused mind. Around her, the noise continued. She got lucky today. Wait till real combat drills. She won't last another week. Emma didn't look up, but her hands paused for half a second. Not because of doubt, because of memory. Not theirs, hers. Something deeper, something she never talked about, something that made silence feel familiar. She tightened the strap on her gear and finally spoke, barely audible. Then I'll adapt faster. And the room didn't hear her. But the story had already begun changing direction. Final scene, the arrival of something worse. Outside, the wind picked up over Fort Bragg. Floodlights flickered across the training grounds. And in the distance, a convoy stopped near the command building. 3 figures stepped out. Not recruits, not instructors, something else entirely. Captain Lewis saw them from the window. His expression changed slightly. Drake noticed. Who are they? Lewis didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, the evaluation team. Drake frowned. They don't come here unless. Lewis finished the sentence for him. Unless they're looking for someone worth breaking. Back in the barracks, Emma Carter closed her eyes for the first time that night. Not to rest, but to prepare. The night at Fort Bragg didn't feel like rest. It felt like waiting. Like the entire base was holding its breath for something it couldn't see yet. In the barracks, most recruits were finally quiet. Exhaustion had replaced ego. Boots lined up neatly under bunks, gear carefully placed. Some men were already asleep mid-thought, still wearing the weight of the day on their faces. But not Emma Carter. She sat on the edge of her bunk, elbows resting on her knees, staring at the floor like she was reading something invisible there. Her hands slowly cleaned and reassembled her gear with mechanical precision. Not because it needed cleaning, because repetition kept her mind stable. Around her, whispers still existed, but quieter now. Not jokes, not laughter, something else. Uncertainty. Because after today's training, people weren't sure anymore. She wasn't the weakest link they thought she was. But she also wasn't proven. And in military environments like this, unproven was more dangerous than weak. The arrival nobody was ready for. At exactly 400 hours, alarms didn't ring. They didn't need to. The entire base already felt it. Engines, heavy vehicles rolling in the distance, floodlights activating along the perimeter. A convoy had entered Fort Bragg, but not a normal one. No markings anyone recognized. No standard unit insignia. Just black vehicles moving with controlled silence. Captain Marcus Lewis stood at the observation window, arms folded behind his back. Sergeant Drake joined him a moment later. "They're early," Drake said. Lewis didn't respond, because he was already watching the figures step out. 3 of them, all wearing plain tactical uniforms. No name tags. No visible rank indicators. Just presence and experience. The kind that didn't need introduction. Drake narrowed his eyes. "Who are they?" Lewis finally spoke. "Tier 1 evaluation unit." Drake frowned. "I thought that was a rumor." Lewis shook his head slightly. "It's not." A pause. Then he added, "It's a test group. They don't train soldiers." Drake glanced at him. "They break them." Lewis didn't look away from the window. "They decide who deserves to survive selection." The announcement. By 600 hours, every recruit was assembled. The air felt different today. Heavier. Even the usual noise of the base seemed muted, like the environment itself understood something important was about to happen. Captain Lewis stepped forward. His voice carried differently than usual. Not loud. Controlled. Today is not a standard training exercise. Silence tightened instantly. Behind him, the 3 elite soldiers stood in formation. Still, silent, watching. Lewis continued. You will undergo an external evaluation. A few recruits exchanged confused looks. External meant one thing. Unknown variables. Uncontrolled pressure. Real-world simulation intensity. Lewis gestured slightly. These individuals are Tier 1 operatives. They will not teach you. They will not guide you. They will assess your survival capacity under direct confrontation. A pause. Then the final line landed like a weight. Most of you will fail. No reaction. Because nobody wanted to be the first to react. Then Lewis turned his head slightly. His eyes landed directly on Emma Carter. And some of you will be tested beyond your limits. That line was not random. It was intentional. Emma felt it. Not fear. Not excitement. Just confirmation. Something was coming for her. The first selection. The evaluation wasn't random. It never was. The 3 elite soldiers began calling names. One by one. Recruits stepped forward. Pairs were formed. Matches assigned. Each encounter designed to measure reaction under pressure. Speed. Control. Fear response. Emma stayed still. Watching. Waiting. Until Carter. Her name cut through the air. She stepped forward immediately. No hesitation. One of the elite soldiers tilted his head slightly as she approached. He studied her like a file that didn't match expectations. You're the one they're unsure about, he said. Emma didn't respond. He smirked slightly. We'll see what that means. Then he turned and pointed toward the ring. Step in. The first fight begins. The arena wasn't really an arena. It was an open training zone with reinforced ground markers and observation lines. But right now, it felt like a cage. Emma stepped inside and immediately felt it. Pressure, not physical, psychological. The kind trained soldiers project without speaking. Across from her stood the first elite soldier. Tall, relaxed posture, hands behind his back, like he wasn't even preparing, like the outcome was already decided. Around them, recruits watched, some curious, some excited, some hoping she would fail, because failure confirmed their comfort. Success disrupted it. The bell rang. Phase 1, testing limits. He didn't attack immediately. He circled her. Slow, measured, studying. Emma adjusted her stance slightly. Not defensive, not aggressive, neutral. The elite soldier finally spoke. Most recruits break in the first 10 seconds. Emma didn't answer. He continued. You won't last 20. Then he moved. Not fast. Controlled. A feint. Then a sudden strike. Emma blocked. The impact forced her arm back slightly. Immediately. Second strike. Lower angle. She stepped back. Maintained balance. But the pressure increased. The soldier wasn't trying to knock her out. He was mapping her reactions. Every block. Every delay. Every micro hesitation. And then He changed rhythm. The first crack. A sudden shift. Faster combination. Emma reacted late for the first time. A punch grazed her shoulder. Another hit landed near her ribs. She staggered half a step. A reaction from the crowd. She's losing already. But Emma wasn't panicking. She was recalibrating. Breathing tightened. Eyes sharpened. She started reading differently. Not the attacks. The pattern behind them. The elite soldier noticed. His expression changed slightly. So you're not completely blind. He increased speed. That was the mistake. Because speed without control creates repetition. And repetition creates prediction. The turn. Emma stopped retreating. One step forward. The crowd reacted instantly. What is she doing? The soldier struck again. Emma slipped inside the strike zone. Barely. Too close for comfort. Her hand moved. A sharp contact to his wrist. His timing disrupted. Second movement. Elbow to center mass. The soldier stepped back for the first time. Not hurt, but interrupted. And that mattered more than damage. Because now, he was no longer fully in control. The second elite soldier enters the mind game. From the sidelines, the second elite operative spoke quietly. She adjusts fast. The first one didn't answer. Because now he was focused. He reset his stance. Eyes narrowing. Good, he said. Then he rushed her. Escalation. Now the fight changed. No longer testing. Now pressure. Fast combinations. Close range exchanges. Emma blocked. Countered. Got hit once. Twice. Each impact heavier. Each exchange more intense. But something strange happened. She wasn't slowing down. She was stabilizing. Like pain was becoming information instead of disruption. The crowd went silent. Because something was becoming clear. This wasn't a recruit surviving a fight. This was someone learning it in real time. The first knockdown moment. The elite soldier finally landed a clean strike. Emma's balance broke. She hit the ground on one knee. A pause. A moment where most recruits would stop. The soldier stepped forward, ready to finish it. He raised his hand. Enough. But Emma didn't respond to the word. She responded to movement. As he stepped closer, she shifted low, swept his supporting leg. The soldier stumbled. For half a second, control broke. Emma used it instantly. She rose, countered, a precise strike to his torso. He stepped back sharply, and for the first time, the elite soldier looked surprised. Not because she hit him, but because she understood timing now. End of part 2. Hook. The second elite soldier stepped forward slightly. The third remained silent. But now everyone understood something. This was no longer a one-on-one evaluation. It was becoming something else. A system stress test. And Emma Carter was no longer just surviving it. She was adapting faster than expected. Too fast. Captain Lewis narrowed his eyes. This is going differently. Sergeant Drake replied quietly. Yeah. A pause. Then, too differently. Emma steadied her breathing, looked forward, and waited. Because now, they were no longer testing her strength. They were testing how far she could break reality before she broke herself. The air inside Fort Bragg's evaluation zone had changed. It wasn't just tension anymore. It was anticipation mixed with disbelief. The kind that builds when people start realizing the situation is no longer normal, but they don't yet understand how far from normal it has gone. Emma Carter stood at the center of the marked combat zone, breathing steady, shoulders slightly lowered, feet planted with quiet precision. Across from her now stood not one elite soldier, but two. The third remained just behind them, watching without movement, not intervening. Not yet, because something about Emma had shifted the evaluation itself. And everyone could feel it. Captain Lewis stood at the edge of the zone, arms crossed tighter than before. Sergeant Drake leaned slightly forward, eyes narrowed. "This was supposed to be controlled," Drake muttered. Lewis didn't respond immediately, because control was no longer guaranteed. Not with the way Emma Carter was moving. The rules no longer mattered. The second elite soldier rolled his shoulders once. Slow, deliberate, like he was preparing to erase a mistake. "She's adapting too quickly," he said. The first soldier didn't look at him. "Then we stop her adaptation." Emma heard everything. She didn't react, but something inside her shifted. Not fear, not excitement, alignment, like her mind was locking into a deeper layer of focus. The bell didn't ring this time, because nobody wanted formality anymore. The first move came instantly. Two directions, two attackers, one high, one low. A coordinated pressure strike designed to collapse defense structure immediately. Emma moved backward, but only slightly, too slightly, and that was intentional. Phase 1, breaking the space. The first strike grazed past her shoulder. The second hit her leg. Pain flashed up her side. But she didn't break rhythm. Instead, she stepped into the gap between both attackers, a move that made no logical sense for a recruit. Gasps came from the sidelines. "She's going into them. That's suicide." But Emma wasn't reacting emotionally. She was compressing distance, because distance favors coordination, and close range destroys it. The moment she entered their shared space, their rhythm fractured. The first breakdown. The second soldier adjusted instantly. A short strike aimed at her ribs. Emma blocked, but barely. The impact pushed her half a step off balance. The first soldier followed immediately. A hook aimed at her jaw. Too fast. Too clean. It connected. Emma's head snapped slightly to the side. A few recruits reacted instantly. "She's down." But she didn't fall. She stabilized. Slowly, like her body absorbed impact, but refused to acknowledge defeat. Her eyes lifted again. And now, something had changed. The shift in her eyes. The elite soldier who hit her noticed it first. That didn't slow her. The second one frowned. That should have staggered her longer. Emma rolled her shoulder once. A small correction. Not emotional. Mechanical. Like resetting alignment after a system error. Then she spoke for the first time. Soft. Controlled. Again. The word wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise. Not as a challenge. As confirmation. That moment changed the atmosphere. Because recruits didn't speak like that under pressure. Soldiers did. Phase 2, the collapse of predictability. The two elite soldiers attacked again. Faster this time. Sharper. Coordinated strikes meant to overwhelm perception itself. But Emma wasn't reacting the same way anymore. She started moving differently. Not faster. Not stronger. Cleaner. Every motion reduced unnecessary movement. Every block became a redirect. Every step became a reposition. Instead of defending against attacks, she started erasing angles. The second soldier noticed first. "She's cutting our timing windows." The first soldier replied instantly. "Then we shorten them." They increased speed again. But this time, Emma didn't retreat. She advanced, straight into the pressure. The moment the crowd stopped breathing, a strike came from the left. Emma slipped it. Another from the right. She rotated. A knee attack followed. She redirected it. But instead of countering immediately, she paused, just for a fraction of a second. That pause confused everyone, including the soldiers. And that was the opening she was waiting for. The first real counter. Emma stepped in. Vast. Direct. Not random. Targeted. Her elbow struck the second soldier's forearm. A sharp impact. Not enough to injure, but enough to disrupt control. Immediately she rotated her stance and struck again. This time, the first soldier's balance shifted. Not dramatically, but noticeably. A gap opened. A real gap. For the first time in the entire evaluation, the elite formation broke. The crowd reacted instantly. "She's breaking them apart." "That's not possible." Captain Lewis narrowed his eyes. "She's isolating them." Drake turned slightly. "What does that mean?" Lewis answered quietly. "She's turning two coordinated fighters into two individual problems." That was not supposed to happen. Not at this level. Phase 3, the pressure spike. The second soldier stepped back slightly. "This is getting inefficient." The first soldier didn't respond, because now he understood something uncomfortable. She wasn't guessing anymore. She was reading them. The third soldier finally moved. One step forward, then another. He entered the zone. Not rushing, not attacking, just joining. Now it was 3. The recruits reacted immediately. "No way. This is overkill." But Emma didn't step back. She exhaled once. Slow, controlled, and adjusted her stance. Now she wasn't facing a test. She was facing a system. The 3-man pressure cave. The third soldier spoke quietly. "You should stop now." Emma didn't respond. He continued. "You've already proven adaptability." A pause. Then, this is where recruits break. The attack started instantly after that. All 3 moved. Not at once, but in sequence. Like a wave designed to never allow recovery. High, mid, low, rotating pressure. The kind designed to erase decision-making entirely. Emma blocked the first strike. Barely avoided the second. Took a partial hit on the third. Her breathing deepened. Her stance shifted slightly. The crowd thought that was it. She's overwhelmed. But Captain Lewis didn't blink. Because he saw something else. She was still calculating. Even under pressure. The breaking point. A heavy strike landed clean on Emma's shoulder. She staggered back 2 steps. For the first time, her posture broke alignment. A signal the human body was reaching limits. The second soldier stepped forward. "End it." He rushed in. But Emma lifted her head. Slowly. And something changed. Not externally. Internally. Like a switch flipping behind her eyes. She stopped reacting. And started deciding. The impossible turn. The next attack came in. Emma didn't block it. She stepped inside it. Not away. Inside. A movement so precise it looked impossible. She took the impact partially, but used it as momentum. Her body rotated with the strike instead of resisting it. And suddenly, the attacker lost control of his own motion. Emma struck immediately. A clean hit to his wrist. A second to his chest. He stumbled back. For the first time, one of the elite soldiers fully lost rhythm. The crowd erupted in shock. But Emma didn't look at them. She looked at the remaining two. And now, she had their attention. Fully. The combat zone at Fort Bragg no longer felt like a training ground. It felt like a battlefield that had forgotten it was supposed to be controlled. Dust hung in the air from repeated impacts. The ground markings that once looked clean and structured were now scuffed, blurred, almost erased by constant movement. And in the center of it all, Emma Carter stood alone, breathing heavier now, sweat darkening the edges of her uniform, bruises forming along her shoulder and ribs. But her eyes were still locked in. Not panic, not exhaustion, something deeper, something sharper, focus that had stopped behaving like emotion and started behaving like instinct. Across from her stood the three elite soldiers, no longer relaxed, no longer testing casually, now fully engaged, fully alert, because something had changed in the last exchange, something none of them were prepared for. She was no longer reacting to them. She was learning them in real time. And that made everything dangerous. Captain Lewis realizes the truth. At the edge of the zone, Captain Marcus Lewis stood completely still. Sergeant Drake leaned closer. "This is getting out of control," Drake said quietly. Lewis didn't respond immediately, because his attention was fixed on Emma, on how she moved now, on how she adjusted after every strike, on how her posture changed not from exhaustion, but from adaptation. Finally, Lewis spoke. "She's no longer processing them as individuals." Drake frowned. "What does that mean?" Lewis narrowed his eyes. "It means she's reading them like a system." A pause. Then the uncomfortable realization. And systems can be broken. The final escalation begins. The third elite soldier stepped forward. No more hesitation. No more analysis. "This ends now," he said. His voice was calm, but firm. The other two shifted positions. Not randomly. Structurally. Forming a triangular pressure formation. One high angle. One mid-range control. One behind positioning. A perfect containment strategy. Designed to remove escape routes. Designed to end adaptability. Designed to break even elite recruits. The crowd felt it immediately. This is too much. She can't handle all three at once. Even Sergeant Drake muttered. No recruit survives that formation. But Emma didn't move back. She moved forward. One step. Then another. Not rushing. Not panicking. Just closing distance. And that alone made the formation tense. Because she wasn't trying to escape it. She was trying to enter it. The cage closes. The first strike came from the left. Emma blocked. Barely. Second strike followed instantly. She rotated her shoulder, absorbing impact. Third came from behind. She ducked forward just in time. But the pressure was increasing. Vast. Relentless. No gaps. No hesitation. A coordinated storm of controlled violence. Emma's breathing deepened. Her movements became tighter, more efficient, less wasted motion. But the system around her kept tightening. The elite soldiers adjusted constantly, closing every microgap she created. The formation was working. She was being compressed, slowly, relentlessly, until she had almost no space left. The moment she nearly breaks, a heavy strike landed on her side. This time, clean. Emma staggered back 2 steps. The crowd reacted instantly. She's done. This is over. Even one of the elite soldiers exhaled slightly. She lasted longer than expected. But Emma didn't fall. She stopped moving for half a second. Just half. And in that half, something inside her recalibrated. Not emotionally, structurally, like a system updating under pressure. Her breathing slowed. Her shoulders dropped slightly. Her stance changed. Not defensive, not offensive, neutral. That confused them. The second soldier frowned. What is she doing? The first narrowed his eyes. Don't give her space. But it was already too late. Because Emma wasn't looking for space. She was looking for timing. The shift from survival to control. The next attack came. Emma didn't retreat. She stepped into it. Perfect angle. Perfect timing. She redirected the strike instead of blocking it. The attacker's momentum shifted off-axis. For the first time, his control slipped. Emma followed instantly. A precise strike to the wrist. A second to the elbow joint. Not powerful. Not dramatic. But surgical. The soldier pulled back instinctively. That small retreat broke formation alignment. A gap opened. The system cracked. The second soldier noticed instantly. Reform. But Emma moved faster than the correction. She advanced into the gap. Not randomly. Directly into the space between 2 attackers. The most dangerous position possible. And yet, the safest for someone who understands disruption. The collapse of coordination. The elite formation tried to adjust. Too late. Emma was already inside their structure. Not fighting them separately, but breaking their synchronization. Every movement she made disrupted timing. Every step interfered with spacing. Every strike forced repositioning. Instead of 3 coordinated attackers, they became 3 individuals reacting independently. And that was the turning point. The second soldier struck. Emma slipped it. The first followed. She redirected it. The third tried to close distance. She rotated out of alignment. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Just continuous disruption. The crowd started to realize something horrifying. She's dismantling them. Not beating them, breaking their coordination. Captain Lewis didn't blink. She understands formation logic. Drake looked at him. That's impossible for a recruit. Lewis answered quietly. Not impossible. A pause. Then, unlikely. The first real downfall. The second elite soldier made a mistake. He rushed in too aggressively to compensate for lost formation. Emma saw it instantly. Not reacted. Saw. He committed forward. She stepped aside, used his momentum, and redirected him into the third soldier's path. They collided. Not violently, but enough to break spacing entirely. For half a second, the formation collapsed. That half second was everything. Emma moved. Vast. Precise. a controlled strike to the second soldier's center mass. He stumbled back, not defeated, but clearly shaken. The formation was no longer intact. The system had failed. The third soldier realizes the truth. The third elite soldier stepped back slightly. And for the first time, he stopped attacking. He looked at Emma, not as a recruit, not as an opponent, but as something else. "She's rewriting engagement patterns," he said quietly. The first soldier frowned. "What are you talking about?" The third didn't answer immediately, because the answer was uncomfortable. "She's not fighting us." A pause. "She's learning how we fight and removing the structure that supports it." Silence. That realization changed everything. Because individual skill can be matched, but structural breakdown cannot. The final exchange. The three elite soldiers regrouped one last time. Not as aggressively, but more carefully, more cautiously. They no longer underestimated her. Now they adapted to her. But Emma had already shifted again. Her breathing was heavier, her body clearly fatigued, but her mind was accelerating. She exhaled slowly and stepped forward. The final engagement began. No announcement, no warning, just motion. The first strike came. Blocked. Second, redirected. Third, avoided. But now Emma was no longer defending. She was controlling space. Every movement forced repositioning. Every step created imbalance. Every exchange reduced coordination further. Until there was no formation left. Only individuals. The final break. The second soldier rushed again. Emma met him halfway. A clean intercept. A precise strike. He dropped to one knee. Not unconscious, but no longer functional in the formation. The crowd erupted in shock. One elite soldier down. The first soldier froze for a fraction of a second. That was enough. Emma turned. Advanced. The final exchange was short. Controlled. Decisive. A final strike disrupted balance. The soldier stepped back. Stunned. Not defeated in pride, but in structure. And then, silence. Aftermath. The base doesn't move. No one spoke. No one reacted immediately. Because what they had just seen didn't fit expectations. Three elite operatives. Disrupted. Not through brute force, but through adaptation speed and tactical deconstruction. Emma stood in the center, breathing heavily, hands lowered, still standing, still aware, still alert, but no longer fighting. Captain Lewis stepped forward slowly. Sergeant Drake followed. Lewis stopped at the edge of the zone. He looked at Emma for a long moment, then said quietly, "Report to command." A pause, then added, "You're no longer in standard evaluation." Emma didn't respond, but she understood. Everything had changed. Final scene, something bigger begins. As she turned to leave the zone, the three elite soldiers remained behind. Silent. Processing. One of them finally spoke. She wasn't the weakest. Another answered, "No." A pause. She was the unknown variable. High above the training ground, floodlights flickered over Fort Bragg. And somewhere inside the command structure, files were already being updated. Her name was being moved. Not out of failure, but out of classification. Because what they had just witnessed wasn't a recruit passing evaluation. It was something far more dangerous. A soldier who didn't just survive pressure, but evolved inside it. And this was only the beginning.